Hey guys, smiling, and I'm hanging out with Nigel on Christmas Eve, and we're about to embarrass ourselves. We're gonna sing. You ready?
Yeah.
Me. Okay, sorry. You better watch out.
You better not cry.
You better not pout.
I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Dope.
He's making a list and checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town.
A father and his son are on camera, laughing, singing Christmas carols together. The boy is 11 years old. He's smiling. He looks completely safe. The father is smiling too, right at the lens, like a man who has everything he ever wanted. That video went live on Facebook at 2:52 in the afternoon on Christmas Eve. By 3:45, a woman was dead on the pavement outside their front door. And the children inside that apartment, they didn't make it to Christmas morning. Now here's what will shake you to your core. The father did not lose control. He did not snap in a moment of blind rage. For 2 full weeks leading up to that day, he had been researching, planning, preparing. He had looked up life insurance payouts. He had studied how forensic investigators collect DNA at crime scenes. He had searched for which cleaning products destroy blood evidence. He had even looked up how long human bodies take to decompose. And then he sat down with his son, hit record, and sang Santa Claus is coming to town. This is the story of Anthony Milan Ross. The world knew him as the vegan magician. He was a celebrity chef, a published author, a motivational speaker who told hundreds of thousands of people that transformation was possible. He was living proof that you can completely change the outside of a person while the inside stays exactly the same. Welcome to Cases Decoded. If this is your first time here, this channel is built on one purpose. We make sure the victims in these stories are never forgotten. We speak their names. We tell the full truth. And we decode the cases that the world needs to understand. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell icon so you never miss a case. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely means everything to this channel. Also, drop a comment right now and tell me where you are watching from today. Tell me your city and your country. And tell me, what time is it over there right now as you're watching this? I love seeing exactly where these stories reach. This community is global, and I want to see every corner of it. Now let's talk about who Anthony Milan Ross really was. To understand how this man became what he became, you have to first understand the man the public was shown. Because the public loved him. At his heaviest, Anthony Milan Ross weighed over 500 pounds. He described himself as a prisoner inside his own body. Moving was difficult. Breathing was difficult. Living was difficult. The moment he always talked about, the story that launched his entire public career, happened at a theme park. He was standing in line with his young son, Nigel, waiting to ride a Harry Potter attraction at Universal Studios. They reached the front. Milan sat down in the ride vehicle. The safety bar would not close. He was too large to fit. A staff member had to pull him aside and ask him to step out. He had to walk back past hundreds of strangers who were all watching him. He looked at Nigel's face. And that was it. Milan went plant-based. He changed everything he ate. He documented every single step of his journey on camera and shared it with the world. Over time, he lost 250 pounds. Half his body weight gone. He started calling himself the vegan magician. And the name stuck because the results looked like actual magic. He appeared on television news stations in Phoenix and Tucson. He was featured in health magazines across the country. He appeared alongside Samuel L. Jackson in a documentary about plant-based living. He wrote a book called The Change. His catchphrase, "Change is a verb," became something people wrote on their walls and carried with them. He became a sought-after motivational speaker. He traveled the country telling audiences, "If I could do this, there is nothing you cannot do." People looked at him and saw a living miracle. A man who had battled his own body and won. A devoted father who did it all for his son. A chef, a teacher, a man of discipline. What they could not see was what was hiding behind all of it. Because the enemy Milan claimed to have defeated, he had never actually faced it. He had just gotten better at covering it up. Before Anthony Milan Ross ever arrived in Phoenix, Arizona, he had already lived an entire life somewhere else. A life he never talked about. Back in 2003, Milan was living in St. Louis, Missouri. He was married to a woman named Nicole. They had 4 daughters together. He was not a celebrity then. He was not on television. He was just a man who was supposed to be a father. Instead, he was the thing those children were afraid of. His daughters, including his oldest, Ebony and Shalanda, eventually testified at trial about what life looked like inside that home. Milan used food as a form of control. He would take away basic ingredients, things like butter, like sugar, from the girls for months at a time. If one of them stepped out of line, they were made to eat plain rice in silence while he sat and watched. It was not about health. It had nothing to do with nutrition. It was about making them feel small. It was about making them afraid. The physical harm was real too. One of his daughters testified that she had been kept out of school for several days in a row because the marks on her face were too visible. Milan did not want teachers seeing them and asking questions. He wanted the walls of that house to keep his secrets. And then in 2003, he simply walked away. He left Nicole and all 4 daughters without a word. No money, no calls, no goodbye. He disappeared and never looked back. By 2009, when he met Iris Sutherland in Phoenix, he had already rebuilt himself from the ground up. New city, new identity, new story. He told her he was a man of God, a man of discipline, a changed man. He never once mentioned the 4 daughters he had left behind in Missouri. Took years before the truth came out. Iris was the one who found it, not through a confession, but through court documents and records she discovered on her own. Imagine that moment, discovering that the man you married, the man you built a life with and had children with, has 4 other children in another state that he never told you about. Children he walked away from and never contacted again. For Iris, that discovery was everything. Because it answered a question she had been quietly asking herself for a long time. If this man could abandon 4 daughters without a single phone call, what did that make him capable of? She was starting to understand that the vegan magician was not a transformation story. He was a predator who had found a better disguise. By 2017, the life Milan had built in Phoenix was falling apart one piece at a time. His restaurant businesses had failed. More than one of them. Each one had opened with buzz and social media coverage and a grand vision, and each one had closed within months. Not because of bad luck, but because of a consistent pattern. Milan was brilliant at generating attention. He was terrible at doing the actual work that came after the attention. Financial records from his trial showed he was $60,000 in debt. High-interest loans, credit card balances, money owed to employees who had worked for him. He was surviving on borrowed time and borrowed money. And he was surviving on Iris's salary. She was the one with the steady job. She was the one providing the financial foundation for the family while he chased the next spotlight. For a man who had built his entire public image around discipline, around mastery, around being an example, this was crushing to his ego. He could not handle it. So he turned that frustration on Iris. The control he had always been capable of, the same control he used on his daughters in Missouri, now came back full force inside their home. He started tracking her location on her phone constantly. Then he started demanding access to her email accounts. He accused her of being unfaithful with no evidence at all. He interrogated her about where she had been and who she had spoken to. Iris started confiding in people she trusted. She told friends she was scared. She told a close colleague that living with Milan felt like walking on eggshells every single day. She was watching the man the world cheered for come apart right in front of her. And she made a decision. She told Milan she wanted a separation. She started looking at apartments. She contacted a divorce attorney. She began taking quiet, careful steps toward getting out. For Milan, this was not just the end of a marriage. This was a threat to his entire existence. If Iris left, she might talk. She knew about the debt. She knew about the Missouri daughters. She knew the real story behind the vegan magician. She could take everything he had built and reduce it to rubble. He swung back and forth between begging and threatening. In one text message he sent her, he wrote, "If you leave, you'll regret it. I promise you that." On December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, Iris sent a text to her sister. She wrote, "I'm scared. I don't know what he'll do when I tell him I'm actually leaving this time." She was trying to plan a quiet exit. Move out without warning. Give him no window to react. She thought she was staying one step ahead of him. She did not know he was already 3 steps ahead of her. When detectives seized Anthony Milan Ross's phone and laptop after his arrest, what they found inside changed this case from a tragedy into something far more chilling. They were not looking at the device of a man who snapped. They were looking at a 2-week blueprint for murder. On December 10th, 15 days before the killings, Milan began searching online for information about life insurance payouts. He specifically wanted to know how much money he would receive if Iris died. He searched for whether the cause of death, homicide versus suicide, changed the payout amount. He was doing the math. 5 days later, on December 15th, his searches shifted into something more specific. He was looking up how forensic investigators collect DNA evidence from crime scenes. He researched which cleaning products are capable of destroying biological material. He searched for how to disable residential security systems. He was not grieving a failing marriage. He was studying how to commit a crime and get away with it. By December 20th, 5 days before Christmas, the searches became something else entirely. He was looking up how long it takes for a human body to decompose, the timeline of physical decay, how quickly evidence degrades. This was not a man in crisis. This was a man calculating. And while he was running every one of those searches, he was still posting motivational content on his social media pages. He was still telling his followers to believe in the process. Still showing up online as the vegan magician, the man of hope, the man of change. He was performing for the camera until the moment he picked up the gun. Forensic psychologists who later reviewed this case were clear. This level of premeditation is rare in domestic violence cases. Most of those situations involve a moment of rage, an impulse. Milan was different. He had reviewed other spousal homicide cases to understand what mistakes other killers had made. He had researched conviction requirements. He had thought through every variable he could anticipate. He had identified Christmas Eve as his window. He knew Iris would be coming to the apartment to pick up the children for a holiday visit. He knew the layout. He knew where he would be standing. He knew what he was going to do. At 2:52 in the afternoon, he posted the video of him and Nigel singing together. He was already in position by 3:45. Pause right here for a second. This case is heavy, and I want to know who is carrying it with me right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Your city, your country, and what time is it over there right now as you're watching this. I genuinely love seeing exactly where in the world these stories are landing. If you are not subscribed to Cases Decoded yet, do it right now. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video. Those 2 things cost you nothing, and they tell the platform to keep pushing these stories to people who need to see them. Alright, Christmas Day. Christmas morning in Phoenix is usually quiet. The desert sky is bright. Neighborhoods are still. Families stay inside with their coffee and their kids and their wrapping paper. On North 16th Street, Anthony Milan Ross had been awake and ready long before any of that. He was not thinking about the holiday. He was not thinking about gifts or traditions or what Nigel and Honora might find under the tree. He was focused on one thing. At 2:52 in the afternoon, he posted that video. Him and Nigel side by side, laughing and singing. Every person who watched it saw a father fully present with his child. A man without a single worry in the world. The gun was already loaded before he hit post. Iris arrived at the apartment complex around 3:45. She was there for a scheduled Christmas visit. She had no reason to feel anything other than the normal tension of a separation. She walked toward the patio of Unit 2131. She never made it through the door. Milan was waiting. Neighbors heard the shots. They looked out their windows. They saw Iris Sutherland Ross on the ground. They saw Milan standing over her. Multiple witnesses later told police that he appeared completely calm. Not frantic. Not shaking. He turned around and walked back inside the apartment and closed the door behind him. Iris was 38 years old. 911 calls started within seconds. Phoenix police arrived within minutes. When officers understood that children were still inside that apartment with the man who had just done this, everything escalated immediately. Milan had barricaded the front door with furniture. He was not hiding. He was waiting. He wanted an audience for what came next. The Phoenix SWAT team deployed. Surrounding units were evacuated. Snipers took positions on rooftops. The entire block was locked down on Christmas afternoon. Negotiators reached Milan by phone. They asked about the children. They begged him to let Nigel and Honora go. They tried everything. Milan's voice was steady throughout every call. Flat. Calm. He sounded, by the account of officers on the line, like a man who had already completed everything he set out to do. And then he told them. He said he had already killed the children. He said it with no emotion at all. Officers sent a robotic camera unit into the apartment. The footage confirmed everything. Nigel, 11 years old, the boy from the singing video, was gone. Baby Honora, just 10 months old, had been shot in her crib. Even after that, the standoff continued. Milan fired on officers through the windows. He wanted the confrontation. He wanted the spectacle to keep going. He had taken 3 lives and he was still playing the lead role. Finally, just before 10 o'clock that night, the SWAT team moved. Flashbang devices. The door came off its hinges. Officers with tactical gear and working dogs flooded the apartment. Milan did not go out fighting. When they reached him, he went to the floor and let them put the cuffs on. He wanted to survive this. He had just killed his wife and both of his children, and he wanted to live to see what happened next. As officers walked him out of the apartment in a white t-shirt and red shorts, he did not look at Iris's body on the patio. He did not look at the blood. He looked directly at the cameras. He was still performing. The murders happened in December of 2017. The trial did not begin until early 2024. Nearly 7 years. 7 years of Iris's mother waking up every morning with that weight on her. 7 years of her sister carrying those "I'm scared" text messages in her memory. 7 years of waiting for a courtroom. Why so long? Because Milan used the legal system the same way he used everything else in his life. As a stage. He fired his legal team multiple times throughout the pretrial process. Each new attorney needed months to review evidence. He filed motions claiming he was not mentally fit to stand trial. The court ordered psychological evaluations. Experts reviewed him and concluded he was fully competent, that he was not experiencing a mental health crisis. He was performing one. Then the global pandemic shut down court systems across Arizona. More time. More waiting. More years. When the trial finally opened in Maricopa County in 2024, the courtroom was packed. Iris's family sat on one side, wearing ribbons to remember her and the children. Milan sat at the defense table, older, grayer, quieter than the man in those television clips. He looked like he was trying to take up as little space as possible. But those eyes were exactly the same. The prosecution built their case on more than 80 pieces of evidence. They walked the jury through every digital search, every text message, every online forum post. They laid out the timeline, December 10th through December 25th, and showed the jury exactly what was running through his mind during those 2 weeks while he was still posting inspiration online. They played the singing video. They showed the timestamp, 2:52 in the afternoon. Then they played the first 911 call. Timestamp, 3:45. The jury sat with that gap. The medical examiner's testimony was one of the hardest moments of the trial. The details of what had happened to Nigel and baby Honora had to be entered into the official record. Several jurors cried. Seasoned court staff looked away from the photographs. Milan stared at the wall. He did not look at a single photograph. He did not flinch once. He showed no reaction at all to the testimony about his own children's deaths. One investigator who took the stand had worked in law enforcement for more than 20 years. He told the jury that in all that time, he had never encountered a response like Milan's on the night of his arrest. When officers confirmed the children were dead, Milan did not break down. He did not ask to see them. He did not ask a single question about what happened. He asked for a lawyer. Iris's sister took the stand and read those text messages out loud in open court. Her voice shook the entire time. She described a woman who had seen the danger clearly and was doing everything she could to get her children out safely. A woman who was trying to leave quietly so he would not have time to react. The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial. They argued Milan had suffered a psychological breakdown. Their own expert witness, however, admitted on the stand that Milan had no documented history of any mental health treatment, and that his behavior matched no recognizable clinical breakdown pattern. It was a choice. Every single part of it was a choice. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They came back with a unanimous verdict. Guilty of the murder of Iris Sutherland Ross. Guilty of the murder of Nigel. Guilty of the murder of Honora. When the clerk read that word out loud, the courtroom gasped. Iris's mother wept quietly with her hands folded in her lap. Milan's daughters in Missouri, who had watched their father become a celebrated figure on television screens, while they carried the memory of what he had done to them, felt something finally release. Milan showed no reaction. He let the guards lead him away. In late 2025, the court gathered one final time. In Arizona, a first-degree murder conviction involving the killing of children carries the possibility of the death penalty. Prosecutors asked for it. They pointed to the cold calculation, the deliberate planning, the fact that he had shot a 10-month-old baby in her crib on Christmas morning after posting a video with her brother. The defense asked for mercy. They talked about his childhood struggles. They talked about the weight loss and the inspiration he had given people. The judge was not moved. He spoke directly to Milan. He talked about the absolute betrayal of a father's responsibility. He noted that this was a man who had spent years presenting himself to the world as someone who had chosen transformation, and who had then made the most deliberate, calculated, violent choice available to him. Anthony Milan Ross was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without any possibility of parole. He will spend the rest of his life in an Arizona correctional facility. Not as the vegan magician. Not as the man who lost 250 pounds. Not as the motivational speaker who stood on stages and made people believe in change. Just as a number. Iris's mother spoke during the sentencing. She stood up, looked at Milan and spoke. Not about him, but about Iris. About who her daughter actually was. A hard-working woman. Professional. A mother who lived for her children. She talked about Nigel's laugh. She talked about baby Honora, who had only just started to crawl. She wanted the world to walk out of that courtroom remembering the victims. Not the man who took them. The apartment on North 16th Street is quiet now. The restaurant concepts are gone. The cookbooks are out of print. Most of the vegan magician videos have been scrubbed from the internet. But Iris Sutherland Ross was a real person. Nigel was a real child who sat next to his father and sang Christmas carols 90 minutes before that same father ended his life. Honora was 10 months old. She had just started to crawl. Anthony Milan Ross spent a decade telling the world, and probably himself, that change was possible. That your past did not have to own you. That discipline and commitment could rewrite who you were. He was right that change is possible. He simply chose never to do it where it actually mattered. He rebuilt his body while leaving his character untouched. He used his public image to silence a woman who had figured out the truth. He treated his family like pieces of a story he was telling about himself, and when those pieces tried to write their own ending, he made sure there was no ending at all. The most important lesson this case carries has nothing to do with veganism or social media or celebrity culture. It is about the distance between who a person shows the world and who they are when no one is watching. Domestic violence does not always look like what people expect. It hides behind charm, behind verified accounts, behind transformation stories and standing ovations. It hides behind a man singing carols with his son on Christmas Eve. Pay attention to the private behavior. That is where the truth always lives. Thank you for staying with me through this entire case. These stories are not easy, but the names Iris, Nigel, and Honora deserve to be spoken out loud. They deserve to be remembered by more than just the people who love them. If this video meant something to you, share it. Every single share is a way of making sure their story keeps reaching new people. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to Cases Decoded so you never miss the next one. And before you go, I want your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think 3 consecutive life terms without parole was the right call? Or should the prosecution have pushed all the way for the death penalty? Leave your answer below. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there right now. I read every comment on this channel. This is Cases Decoded. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next case.